Long ago, in the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, there rose a kingdom unlike any other, Babylon, a land of great wealth, towering structures, and unmatched power. But among all its splendor, one name stood above the rest: Nimrod. Feared by his enemies, worshipped by his people, his rule was absolute. But what set Nimrod apart from other kings was not just his power, it was his pride. He did not merely see himself as a ruler, he declared himself a god. In his eyes, he held dominion over life and death. No force in the universe could challenge him. Or so he thought. Day after day, he sat upon his golden throne, basking in the praise of his followers. They bowed, they worshipped, they obeyed, never daring to question his authority. But then, one man changed everything. That man was Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Unlike the people of Babylon, he did not bow to Nimrod. He did not fear his power. He did not believe in the false gods that the people so blindly followed. Ibrahim called upon the people to abandon their idols, to leave behind their falsehoods, and to worship Allah alone. When news of this defiance reached Nimrod, his rage was unmatched. How dare someone challenge his authority? How dare someone tell the people that he was not their God? Enraged, he summoned Ibrahim to his court, determined to humiliate him before the people. And so began one of the greatest debates in history. Nimrod, sitting high upon his throne, glared at Ibrahim and asked, "Who is this God you speak of? Do you not see that I am the one who gives life and death?" To prove his so-called power, Nimrod ordered 2 prisoners to be brought before him. One was sentenced to death, the other set free. With a smirk, he declared, "Look, I have given one life and taken the other. I control life and death." But Ibrahim remained calm. He did not engage in foolish arguments. Instead, he spoke with wisdom. "Allah makes the sun rise from the east," he said. "If you are truly a god, then make it rise from the west." Silence fell over the court. Nimrod's smirk faded. For the first time in his life, he had no answer. His arrogance, his pride, shattered by a single sentence. The people whispered among themselves. Had Nimrod truly been defeated? Was he really powerless? But instead of accepting the truth, Nimrod was consumed by rage. He refused to admit defeat, and so he made the most foolish decision of his life. He declared war against Allah. Nimrod, driven by his wounded pride, gathered his advisors. "If Ibrahim's God controls the heavens, then I shall reach the heavens and prove my power." And so, he ordered the construction of a massive tower, one so high it would touch the sky. Day and night, thousands labored, stacking bricks upon bricks, raising the tower higher and higher. Nimrod stood atop it, looking to the heavens, convinced that soon he would become the god of both earth and sky. But still, something was missing. A tower was not enough. He needed a way to physically reach the heavens. And so, he devised a bizarre plan. He built a special chariot, one that could fly. He gathered 4 giant eagles, powerful birds capable of lifting immense weight. Then he starved them, making them desperate for food. When the time came, he placed pieces of meat just out of their reach. And then, he let them fly. Higher and higher, the eagles soared, lifting Nimrod into the sky. The people of Babylon looked on in awe. Nimrod laughed, believing he was ascending to the heavens. He truly thought he had achieved divinity. But then, the sky darkened, the winds howled, the birds, confused and exhausted, lost control. The chariot shook, the eagles flapped desperately. And then, Nimrod fell. The arrogant king who thought he could challenge Allah came crashing down. His body hit the earth with a sickening thud. His bones shattered. His pride was destroyed, but his punishment was not over. Allah sent against him the smallest of his creations, a tiny mosquito. It entered Nimrod's nose and burrowed into his brain. And then the torment began. Day and night, Nimrod suffered. The pain was unbearable. He screamed, he begged, he ordered his servants to strike his head with hammers just to ease the agony. But nothing helped, and in this miserable state, he died. The king who thought he could fight Allah was not defeated by an army, not by a warrior, but by a tiny insect. His tower lay in ruins. His kingdom fell into chaos. The people who once worshipped him now saw him as a fool. Doubt spread through Babylon. They recalled the words of Prophet Ibrahim. They remembered how Nimrod was left speechless. And many began to wonder, was Ibrahim right all along? Then Allah's final punishment arrived. A devastating plague. The once mighty city of Babylon became weak, its people sick and helpless. Their wealth, their power, none of it could save them. And as for Nimrod, his name became a warning, a lesson for all generations to come. So what do we learn from this story? Nimrod had everything: wealth, power, control. But his arrogance led to his downfall. He refused to accept the truth, and in the end, he was destroyed. Prophet Ibrahim stood alone, yet he did not fear. He knew that Allah is the true king. His faith made him victorious. Even today, the ruins of Babylon stand as a silent reminder. Arrogance leads to destruction, but humility before Allah brings honor. May Allah protect us from pride and guide us on the path of truth. This story echoes through time as a testament to the power of faith over arrogance. No matter how mighty one becomes, no power surpasses that of the Almighty. The lesson of Nimrod is a warning, a message that those who defy the divine will ultimately face their reckoning. It serves as a reminder that true power lies not in wealth, not in dominion, not in the fear of others, but in humility and submission to the one who controls all things. History has witnessed the rise and fall of countless rulers who thought themselves invincible. Yet their legacies stand not as tributes, but as cautionary tales. So let us take heed. Let us learn from the past, and let us never forget. The fate of the arrogant is written in stone, while the legacy of the faithful lives on forever. Long ago, in the heart of Mesopotamia, there stood a kingdom unlike any other, a land of great wealth, unmatched power, and unshakable rule. This was Babylon, a civilization that flourished with towering structures, bustling markets, and armies that struck fear into the hearts of its enemies. At the center of this mighty empire sat one man, a ruler whose arrogance knew no limits, Nimrod. His name alone commanded obedience. His word was law. His throne, made of gold and jewels, symbolized his unquestioned authority. The people of Babylon did not just respect him, they worshipped him. But Nimrod was not like other kings. He was not content with ruling over people. He wanted to rule over existence itself. He declared himself a god, claiming to control life and death. He convinced the people that he alone determined their fate, that no power in the heavens or the earth was greater than him. And the people, blinded by fear and deception, believed him. Day after day, Nimrod sat upon his throne of arrogance, basking in the praises of his followers. They bowed before him, chanted his name, and obeyed his every command without question. He surrounded himself with advisors who flattered him, soldiers who enforced his rule, and priests who declared his divinity. To Nimrod, there was no higher power. He was the highest. But in his kingdom of wealth and illusion, Nimrod had forgotten one thing: the true power of Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth. And soon, he was about to be remembered. In the vast kingdom of Babylon, where people bowed to Nimrod without question, there was one man who refused to kneel, a man who would not be deceived by wealth, power, or empty claims of divinity. This man was none other than Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Unlike the people around him, Ibrahim alayhi salam saw the truth. He knew that Nimrod was no god. He was just a man, a mortal like everyone else. No matter how much gold he owned, no matter how many soldiers he commanded, he was powerless before the one true creator, Allah. Ibrahim alayhi salam was not afraid. While others whispered in secret, he spoke openly. He called the people to abandon their false idols. He warned them against following a king who was drenched in arrogance. He reminded them that only Allah gives life and death. Only Allah controls the heavens and the earth. The people were shocked. How could anyone dare challenge Nimrod? Some were intrigued, others fearful, but many were angry. To question Nimrod's power was to invite destruction. It wasn't long before the news reached the palace. Nimrod sat on his golden throne, surrounded by his advisors, and listened as they told him about this man who defied his rule. The king's eyes burned with rage. "Who dares challenge me?" he roared. His pride could not accept the idea that someone denied his divinity. And so he ordered that Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam be brought before him. A confrontation was coming, a battle of words, wisdom, and truth. And it would shake the very foundations of Babylon. The grand halls of Nimrod's palace echoed with the sound of footsteps as the guards dragged Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam before the king. The air was heavy with tension. Nobles, soldiers, and advisors gathered, eager to witness what would happen next. Nimrod sat high upon his golden throne, draped in silk, his crown glistening under the torchlight. He looked down at Ibrahim alayhi salam with eyes full of arrogance, a smirk forming on his lips. "So you are the man who dares to defy me?" he scoffed. Ibrahim alayhi salam stood firm. He did not flinch. He did not bow. He looked Nimrod in the eyes, calm and fearless. "My Lord is Allah, the one who gives life and death," he declared. Nimrod laughed. The court laughed. To them, these words were foolish. Who could be greater than their king? Then, with a smug expression, Nimrod decided to prove his power. He ordered 2 prisoners to be brought forth. One was sentenced to death, and the other was set free. With a wave of his hand, he commanded one to be executed and allowed the other to live. "Look, I have given one life and taken the other. I control life and death," Nimrod proclaimed. But Ibrahim alayhi salam was unshaken. He looked at Nimrod and replied with one simple truth: "Allah makes the sun rise from the east. If you are truly a god, make it rise from the west." Silence. The court fell still. The king's smugness vanished. For the first time in his life, Nimrod had no answer. His arrogance had been shattered. But instead of admitting defeat, his fury only grew. The silence in the grand hall was deafening. The advisors, the soldiers, the nobles, no one dared to speak. Nimrod, the mighty self-proclaimed god, had been humiliated in front of his own people. His face twisted with rage, his hands clenched into fists. His mind burned with only one thought: revenge. How dare this man, this mere subject, stand before him and expose his weakness? How dare he question his power? Nimrod's pride was wounded, but his arrogance refused to let him accept the truth. Instead of surrendering to logic, he did what all tyrants do. He chose violence. "If your God controls the heavens," Nimrod sneered, "then I will challenge him. I will show you all that I am the true ruler of the earth and the sky." His advisors, blinded by their loyalty, nodded in agreement. "Yes, my king, show them your power. Prove to them that you are unstoppable." Nimrod, in his madness, made a foolish decision. He declared war against Allah. But how does a man fight against the creator of the heavens and the earth? The answer was as absurd as the thought itself. Nimrod ordered the construction of a tower, one so high that it would reach the sky. If he could climb to the heavens, he believed, he could confront Allah himself. For months, thousands of workers labored under the burning sun, stacking brick upon brick, raising the tower higher and higher. And Nimrod, standing atop his unfinished monument of arrogance, laughed. He truly believed he was invincible. He truly believed he could reach the heavens. But soon he would learn the truth. The Tower of Nimrod rose higher each day, its shadow stretching across Babylon like a monument of madness. Thousands of workers labored endlessly, stacking brick upon brick, their sweat and blood fueling the ambition of a deluded king. Nimrod stood atop the unfinished structure, looking at the sky with defiance in his eyes. He truly believed that with enough effort, he could reach the heavens, that he could stand before Allah and challenge his power. But the tower was not enough. A greater plan took shape in his mind, one even more foolish and arrogant. Nimrod ordered his men to build a flying chariot, one that would take him beyond the clouds. It was no ordinary chariot. It was tied to 4 giant eagles, each strong and powerful. For days, he starved the birds, letting their hunger grow. Then, he tied large pieces of raw meat just above them, so when released, they would fly toward the food, carrying Nimrod's chariot into the sky. The day came. The people of Babylon gathered, watching in awe and disbelief. The ropes were cut. The eagles flapped their wings violently, lifting the chariot off the ground. Higher and higher it went. Nimrod laughed, believing he was ascending to the heavens. But then, the sky darkened. The winds howled. The birds panicked. The chariot shook violently. The eagles, confused and exhausted, lost control. Then Nimrod fell. His body plunged from the heights he had so desperately tried to reach. He crashed to the ground. His bones shattered. His pride was destroyed. But his punishment was far from over. Nimrod, once the most feared king in Mesopotamia, now lay broken in his own palace. His body was weak, his bones shattered, but his pride remained intact. Even after his humiliating fall, he refused to admit defeat. But Allah had already decreed his true punishment. It was not an army that would bring Nimrod to his knees. It was not a warrior, nor a sword, nor a great calamity. It was a tiny mosquito. Yes, a single mosquito, one of the smallest creatures on earth, was sent to humble the self-proclaimed God. One night, as Nimrod lay in his chamber, the tiny insect entered his nostril. It crawled deep into his head and settled inside his brain, and from that moment, his suffering began. The mosquito buzzed, bit, and burrowed, driving the tyrant into unimaginable agony. The pain was unbearable. It felt as if his skull would burst open. No medicine could cure him. No wealth could save him. Desperate for relief, Nimrod screamed and begged his servants for help. He ordered them to strike his head with hammers, hoping to numb the pain. But nothing worked. Day after day, the once mighty king suffered. His palace, once filled with laughter and power, echoed with his cries of torment. And in this miserable state, the arrogant king died, not in battle, not in glory, but in humiliation, defeated by a single mosquito. This was the fate of the one who dared to challenge Allah. But Nimrod's downfall was only the beginning. What would become of Babylon after his death?